Peter.
Caroline, very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump, during the course of the campaign in 2024, said the following about illegal immigration. He said, "They're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals." NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal?
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking, though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
Karoline Leavitt, Trump's press secretary, confronted an NBC reporter in a heated exchange over the administration policies, pushing back against what she called biased questioning. As the reporter pressed on whether Trump's mass deportation plan would focus solely on violent criminals, Leavitt firmly stated that all undocumented immigrants, by virtue of entering the country illegally, were considered criminals under the administration's stance. She emphasized Trump's commitment to executing the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history, reinforcing a stark shift from previous policies. With 1179 undocumented immigrants recently arrested, nearly half with no prior criminal record, Leavitt defended the administration's broad enforcement approach. She also highlighted Trump's new executive order on stricter vetting, signaling a tougher stance on refugee and visa applicants from countries with insufficient screening measures. The confrontation underscored the administration's unwavering position on immigration and its determination to reshape enforcement priorities.
Peter.
Caroline, very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump, during the course of the campaign in 2024, said the following about illegal immigration. He said, "They're going back home where they belong, and we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals." NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal?
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking, though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, it's not violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table.
The Trump administration's immigration policy marks a significant shift towards strict enforcement, mass deportation, and enhanced vetting measures. With a commitment to launching the largest deportation operation in U.S. history, the administration has emphasized that all undocumented immigrants, regardless of criminal history, are subject to removal. This approach departs from previous policies that prioritized violent offenders, sparking debate over whether enforcement should target serious criminals or extend to all individuals who entered illegally. Recent ICE arrests of 1,179 undocumented immigrants, nearly half of whom had no prior criminal record, highlight the administration's broad application of immigration laws. Trump's executive order on stricter vetting further reinforces this hardline stance by tightening screening processes for refugees and visa applicants, potentially leading to travel bans on countries with inadequate security measures. Supporters argue that these policies uphold the rule of law and deter illegal immigration, while critics warn of humanitarian concerns, legal challenges, and economic repercussions. By redefining immigration enforcement to include all undocumented immigrants as criminals, the administration has set a new precedent that will likely shape future immigration policies, making it a contentious issue in U.S. political discourse.
Understood. Then let me ask you a separate question about the confusion that still exists across the country right now as it relates to the freeze or the pause as it's described. President Trump, of course, ran one of the key policy items was that he was going to lower prices, lower the cost of everything from groceries, as he often said. But in many of the cases, it would seem that some of these moves could raise prices for real Americans on everything from low-income heating, that program, child care programs. Will nothing that the president's doing here in terms of the freeze in these programs raise prices on ordinary Americans?
What particular actions are you referring to that
I'm
would...
referring to LHEAP right now. That's the low-income heating program, for example. We can talk about, there's no clarity, so I could refer to a lot of them. We don't know what they are specifically. Can you tell us that LHEAP is not one of those affected?
So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify.
No, I just identified.
What I can tell you
Just to be
is
clear,
that
since you guys haven't identified, let's do it together just for Americans at home. Medicaid, is that affected?
I gave you a list of examples: Social Security, Medicare, welfare benefits, food stamps that will not be impacted by this federal pause. I can get you the full list after this briefing from the Office of Management and Budget. But I do want to address the cost cutting because that's certainly very important and cutting the cost of living in this country. President Trump has taken historic action over the past week to do that. He actually signed a memorandum to deliver emergency price relief for American families, which took a number of actions. I can walk you through those. He also repealed many onerous Biden administration regulations. We know over the past 4 years, American households has been essentially taxed $55,000 in regulations from the previous administration. President Trump, with the swipe of his pen, rescinded those, which will ultimately put more money back in the pockets of the American people. So deregulation is a big deal. And then when it comes to energy, I mean, the president signed an executive order to declare a national energy emergency here at home, which is going to make America energy dominant. We know that energy is one of the #1 drivers of inflation, and so that's why the president wants to increase our energy supply to bring down costs for Americans. The Trump energy boom is incoming, and Americans can expect that.
From Karoline Leavitt's perspective, the Trump administration's economic policies and cost-cutting measures are a necessary and strategic effort to restore financial stability, empower American families, and ensure economic sovereignty. She would likely argue that deregulation is essential to eliminating bureaucratic red tape, allowing businesses to thrive and passing savings on to consumers. The administration's stance is that under Biden's regulatory policies, American households were burdened with excessive costs, and Trump's swift action to roll back those regulations puts money back in the pockets of working Americans. Leavitt would emphasize that deregulation is not about cutting protections, but about removing unnecessary government overreach that stifles economic growth. Leavitt would also highlight Trump's declaration of a national energy emergency as a historic move to make America energy dominant again, contrasting it with Biden's energy policies, which he would claim made the U.S. reliant on foreign oil, driving up costs for consumers. By boosting domestic energy production, she would argue, Trump is ensuring that Americans pay less for gas, electricity, and everyday essentials, reducing the inflationary pressures that have hurt working-class families. Regarding the freeze on certain federal funds, Leavitt would maintain that direct assistance programs like Medicare, Social Security, and food stamps remain untouched, countering any Democratic claims that Trump's policies would harm vulnerable Americans. She would likely push back against concerns about programs like Meals on Wheels, framing them as misleading media narratives meant to stir fear rather than reflect reality. She would emphasize that the administration's goal is to review wasteful government spending, not to hurt those in need. On trade policy, Leavitt would defend Trump's tariff plans as a bold and necessary move to protect American workers and industries from unfair foreign competition. She would argue that previous administrations, particularly under Biden and Obama, allowed other nations, especially China, to exploit the U.S. economy through unfair trade deals and cheap labor markets. Tariffs, in her view, are a way to level the playing field, bring back manufacturing jobs, and ensure that American businesses remain competitive. Ultimately, Leavitt would present Trump's economic policies as a commitment to putting Americans first, slashing costs, increasing economic opportunity, and securing financial independence. She would dismiss criticisms of deregulation, federal spending freezes, or tariffs as media distortions designed to undermine Trump's agenda. In her framing, the administration is delivering on its promise to restore economic power to the American people, combat inflation, and free businesses from the grip of excessive government interference. What do you think about the Trump administration's approach to immigration enforcement and economic policy? Do you agree with the push for mass deportations, or do you believe enforcement should focus on violent criminals? How do you feel about deregulation and tariffs? Will they help American families, or could they create economic challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy content that dives deep into political debates, policy analysis, and breaking news, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest developments. And your support helps us keep bringing you the news that matters.